Alright, so now that we've gone over a demo of the application and what we're going to build, it's important to actually go over the architecture and all of the different steps that we're going to follow in order to bring this to life and actually get a full, complete running app. So the first thing that we're going to go over is this top row that is all about preparing the CSV files that we get and formatting them into a way that MySql can properly handle. So basically, we have some CSV files that we downloaded online, and they're pretty crappy. They're badly formatted. They have extra commas and columns, and some of the information we actually don't want in certain files. We want to create different files out of that. So in order to solve that problem, we're going to be using a library called popparse, which is going to allow us to do some data preparation and manipulate the data in some way and put it into those nicely formatted CSV files that we want so that we can upload that into our database. And so that's going to give us our output of these really nicely formatted CSVs that will make up the actual data in the tables in our database. So to kind of demonstrate that, we are downloading all of the data from this Kaggle website, and it's an anime recommendations database. So all of these CSV files have the data for the anime, the users, the reviews, and the genres, and all of that good stuff. So if we look right here, I've actually filtered out commas onto the name column so we can find all of the rows that have a comma in the name column. So if you look at this, it has extra commas. Now, the delimiter that we're going to be using for our MySql database is going to be a comma. And the delimiter basically tells the database when and where to split data into different columns. So if we take this first row, for example, we have this number, and it's 3371, and you can imagine that there's a comma right here where this line is, and it's going to read this in and say, oh, hey, there's a comma here, so I know that this first portion of data is going to go in the anime ID column. And now it's going to start from that comma and read in the rest of this data and say, oh, wow, I reached another comma. So that must mean that all of this data goes into the name column. And then it's going to start from that comma and get all of this data, and imagine again that this line right here is a comma, and it's going to take all of this data and say, oh, okay, I reached another comma. So that must mean that the rest of this is going to go into the genre column. And that's actually not what we want. We want this entire piece right here to go into the name column. And since the delimiter that we're using is the comma, it's just going to improperly load our data into our database. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out all of the extra commas in this name column, and we're actually not even going to take this genre column right here. We're going to create a reference table that's going to map all the different genres to anime because they can have multiple genres. So we're going to create a reference table, and we're not even going to have this in the anime table. So just know that the extra commas right here are basically going to offset all of the data by however many extra commas are in the row, and so that's why we're going to use popparse right here to solve that problem for us. So basically what we're going to do with popparse is we're going to point to the CSV file that we have from Kaggle, so we're going to get all of the raw crappy data, and we're going to parse through it with popparse, and we're going to do some type of data manipulation, remove those commas, create the different tables that we need to, and do some data manipulation there and extract what we want and throw away whatever we don't want. And then we're going to convert all of that back into a big long string that we can use to actually write the contents to our file. So it's going to give us a string of all the different contents for each file, and then we're going to use popparse to actually write to that file and create our own CSVs. So that covers the top row. The next row is the actual architecture of our application. So first thing we're going to have is a database. This is again going to house all of the different tables for anime, users, reviews, the genres, all of that stuff, so that we actually have a warehouse for all the data that we're going to use in the front end. The front end is going to be using React, so this is everything that you're going to see in the web browser that the user is actually going to be able to interact with. We're going to use that React library because it's really popular right now. It's really powerful, and it gives us a really nice, easy way to create web pages, the tables, the different anime cards, the login component, all of that. And then sitting in the middle, we're going to have our Express server, and what this essentially is a REST API. So our front end is going to need some data in order to actually render all those nice lists and actually show some type of stuff.
Yeah, you should keep laughing. That was really funny.
Wait, I thought this was supposed to be a tutorial.
This video sucks.
Didn't you major in computer science?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so are your parents.
It's actually parent, singular.
Haha, this kid doesn't have a dad!
Man, get this guy out of here! You look like you just discovered Snapchat filters. You look like an alpaca!
Basically to the user. And in order to get that data that sits in the database, we need to have an intermediary process or server in the middle that is going to listen to those requests, perform those requests, and then return a response to the front end. So think of the server as a waiter at a restaurant. What a waiter essentially does is listen for orders from the customers and then go back to the kitchen, and the kitchen will prepare those orders, give it back to the waiter, and then the waiter will deliver those orders to the customer who asked for it. So what our app is going to do is it's going to say, hey, server or waiter, my order is I want you to get me all of the users in the database. And the server is going to say, oh, okay, I've been waiting for you to give me an order, so this is perfect. Now I'm going to go give that order to the kitchen, which is the database that sits in the back end, and when the order's done, I'll come and give it back to you. So the server is going to take that order, say, let me get all of the users, and it's going to pass a query to the database to perform, and the database is going to say, oh, okay, this query is to get all of the users. Let me prepare that order or get all of those users. Going to perform that query, and then it's going to respond to the server or give the waiter the order, and it's going to say, hey, here's all the users. And the server is going to say, okay, perfect, I just got all of the users. Now let me give a response to the front end, the actual web application with all of the users. And then our React app is going to consume that response and do something with the data, which in our case is going to be that user list with all the different information, with their usernames, their first name, their last name, their avatar image, and all of that. So let's quickly go over the different technologies that we're going to be using. So we're going to be using MySql to create the database. You guys already knew that. I've said it 100,000 times. We're going to be using this MySql workbench, which is basically just going to give us a way to create that connection, create the database, and then create the different tables. And we can also use MySql Workbench to query the different tables and see what is in our database. And it'll just give us a nice visual way for us to interact with the data that we're going to be using. The next component is the Express library that is going to be used to create our server, so that we can actually pass the data around to the database and pass it back to the web application. You can use Express for a lot of different things, but we're mainly just going to be using it for an API. So if we look here, we're basically going to copy this word for word. We're going to create an Express server. We're going to have it listen on a port so that it always listens to requests from our app. And we're going to be using different API endpoints. We're going to establish those together that are going to either fetch data from the database, so get some type of data, or perform some other operations such as deleting data from the database or adding data to the database when we add anime or add reviews or delete anime or anything like that. And then the last component that we're going to be using is the React library, which is a library that's maintained by Facebook. It's really nice. It is the top UI library that you can use right now. So there's three big ones. There's React, there's Vue, and then there's Angular. Angular is probably in third place, trailing behind a little bit. People aren't as happy with that one as they are with React. But React is really nice, and it's really powerful, and it's easily the most popular one right now. A lot of nice websites use them. If we look at Airbnb, we'll see that they have a really nice website. So big companies use it because it's so stable and it's really fast and it's really easy to pick up. So we have Airbnb right here using that. Their website looks really nice. And if we look at Verve, which is a anime streaming website that is the parent company to Crunchyroll, and they're basically Netflix but for anime. Really nice website. And you can see that they use React as well too. They have this really nice card style. And it's a really sleek design. So this is the one that we're going to be using. It's really popular right now. If you're really interested in web development at all or full stack web development, you should definitely check out React and try to become well versed in it, because there's a lot of market value to it. There's a lot of jobs for it. Companies are always looking for React developers because that's the hot new thing in web development. So that about covers what is all going to go into our application, and in the next video we'll actually start to create it.